I've come a long way. I've seen how you work. There's so much goodness and grace, much more than I deserve. 'Cause I know who I am, and I can't stay where I'm at yet. We've come this far by faith, and I just can't turn back. He's not done with me yet. He's not done with me yet. There's so much more to the story. You're not done with me yet. You're not done with me yet. You're not done with me yet. There's so much more to the story. You're not done with me yet. You're not done with me yet. You're not done with me yet. There's so much more to the story. You're not done with me yet. So who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? God is more than able. Yes, you are more than able. God is more than able. God is more than able. Oh, I believe God is more than able. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? One more time. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do?
You guys can go ahead and take a seat. I want to continue this moment of worship by giving you guys a chance to give with us this morning. There are so many different ways you can give here at South Hills. You can give at the Wooden Towers by the exit doors, give with the Church Center app, online, carrier pigeon. You can give but with the buckets that are about to be passed down by the ushers. Whatever way you like to give, while you're doing that, I just want to read you a story from a woman in our church. She said, I came to South Hills a year and a half ago when I was going through a really hard time in my life and was learning to lean into my faith in God to get through it. I was alone and didn't have much of a support system, and I knew that I would need a community if I was going to survive it. I very intentionally joined the women's group, even though it was already several weeks in, with the hope that I would find that community. What I found was so much more than that. Though these last several small group sessions, I have found friends, mentors, spiritual support, and prayer, and people who now know me and check in on me every Sunday at church. So no matter what you're going through or what you're looking for, I promise that there are people here that want to be there for you and that they won't regret it. If you're on the fence and you're thinking about joining a small group, give it a try. I promise you it's worth it. And I think we all have aspects of her story in our own lives where we've been through periods of time where we're like, this feels really hopeless. This feels like I'm stuck. I don't know if this is ever going to get better. I don't know if I'm going to survive this. Yet her story is one of so many of people whose lives have been changed after they got into a community of people and they weren't doing their lives alone anymore. She was able to find people and get connected, and that changed everything. It made everything so much more different. It provided so many more gifts that she didn't even consider. And it wouldn't be possible for us to hear stories like this or for us to offer anything we do on a Sunday or a Wednesday night or anything throughout the whole week that gives people a chance to connect if it wasn't for the faithful giving of everyone who calls South Hills their church home. It's because of that giving that we get to hear these stories and create opportunities for them to happen. And you might be thinking, there's a lot of information about small groups, and it ties in because on your seat, you should have a pamphlet that says something to the effect of, here's all of our small groups that we have. And I want you to take a look at this. Take a look through all of these different groups we have. Find one to get connected with because you won't regret it. You can sign up for one. You can sign up for like a bunch of them. I have done so many of these groups, and I have loved every single one. So I encourage you, get in a group so that you don't have to do life alone anymore either. From the bottom of our heart, thank you so much for trusting God with what he's given you so that we get to hear all these stories. And I encourage you, get in a group so that we get to hear more of your story. Thank you for giving with us today.
Hi, my name is Gretchen, and I'm the Next Steps Director here at South Hills Corona. Whether you're with us online or in person, we're glad that you chose to join us today. If you're new with us, we hope you feel welcome, and there's just one thing we want to ask of you. To fill out a Connect card that asks for 3 simple pieces of information. You can find these blue teal cards in the back of the chair in front of you. Your card can be turned in after service at the Connect counter in the lobby for a Starbucks gift card. And if you're new and watching online, click the link in our bio or in the chat to fill out your Connect card from there. Our spring season for small groups and Rooted kicks off next week, February 16th. These groups are a great way to make new friends, grow spiritually, and get more connected. I want to encourage you to look at the available groups at the brochure on your chair. They can also be found under small groups on the Corona website or the Church Center app. If you need any help finding a group or asking questions about the right fit for you, please stop by our groups table on the plaza. One of our volunteers would love to help you. On Sunday, February 23rd, we are hosting a blood drive on campus. Walk-ins are welcome, but you can also sign up for a specific time slot on the Church Center app. This is a great way to support our local blood banks and ensure they are stocked for any needs that arise in our area. The Church Center app is the best way to stay connected at South Hills. You can use the Church Center app to give, join a small group, or even check your kids in on a Sunday. You can stop by the Connect counter in the lobby for more details on how to download and use the Church Center app. In just a moment, Pastor Adam will be out as we continue in our series, Till Stress Do Us Part.
Most romantic relationships don't go the distance. And those that do don't always seem all that happy. What if we're not all bad at relationships? What if we're just bad at managing stress? Till stress do us part.
Good morning. Good to see you guys. It is Super Bowl Sunday. Is anybody excited just about the snacks? That is the best part. Some of you are like, I don't care about these teams. It's not about the teams. It's about the nachos. It's about the dips. It is about the buffalo wings, okay? These are the things that God intended this Sunday to be about. And I cannot wait for the tacos that await me later. But for now, we're going to continue on in this series that we started last week called Till Stress Do Us Part, which is really talking about this idea that, relationships are sort of lasting shorter. They're going shorter and shorter. And the fulfillment level that most people are experiencing is smaller and smaller. And why is that? And we've been wrestling with this idea of like, what if it's not that your partner is the problem? What if it's that we live in a society in which we are overstressed, we're pulled in so many different directions, and we don't have the tools to navigate the stress of our lives well enough to actually keep our relationships on track? And so This series is essentially asking this question: what if we had better tools to deal with our stress, both as individuals and as a couple? Could we have more successful relationships? And that's what we're doing. And I want to also just say that maybe you're here today and you're like, okay, I'm not married, so is this just not for me? And I do want to encourage you to lean in today, because everything that we're going to talk about in terms of stress management during this series is applicable to your life, no matter how old you are, no matter what kind of relationship you're in, whether you are single, whether you're married, whether you're divorced, whether you're sort of contemplating what is next for you. There is something in here that if you tuck into your life is going to make you better at life and relationships, and that's our heart for you. So take some notes today, write down some things that you think are interesting, that you want to think about, wrestle with, talk about a little bit more. And the title of my message today is Overfilled. Overfilled. Now, one of the things that I realized really early in my relationship with my wife is that we do not have the same taste in food. We just can't agree on what tastes delicious. She's wrong a lot of the time, as it turns out. How many of you just don't have the same taste buds as your partner, right? It's just different. You like different stuff. Anybody else feud when you're trying to figure out where to go to eat because they're like, what about this place? And you're like, no. You're trying to pretend like it's okay, but you really don't want to go there. And so I try and seize the opportunities when my wife is not with me and I get to pick the place. I go eat something that I know I wouldn't get to eat if she was with me because she wouldn't want it. And at the top of that list is sushi. I love sushi. How many of you sushi fans? So delectable. See, babe, I told you. Gosh, what's the deal? And so a little while back, I had a night sort of free, and so called up one of my buddies, and we went and got sushi. And you got to go get all-you-can-eat sushi. Everybody knows that. I take it as a challenge. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna break your restaurant. Okay, that's what's gonna happen right here. You were not gonna get me. Okay, and so we've ordered the food. It's come. We're talking. We're kind of doing that thing where you're catching up, and you've done all the shallow stuff. And you're starting to get into more of the deep end sort of stuff. And I'm asking him about his life and asking him about his relationship, his marriage, his wife. And I was like, how are things between you guys? And he was like, you know, they're good. And I was like, okay, that didn't seem, why does your voice get so high all of a sudden? It feels like you're lying. And he's like, no. And I'm like, you're doing it again, okay? What's really going on? And he's like, it's not great. Like we're feuding constantly. It just feels like we're always fighting. And it's frustrating because I'm just kind of like, I don't always even want to be at home with her because of just we're at each other all the time. And I was like, oh man, are you going to eat that? Because that I have been eyeballing, because when you're really hungry, it's hard to pay attention to people. And after he shared with me, I was just like, man, I asked him this question that I often ask people when things are not going well in their relationship. I said, what's your schedule like right now? And he looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what does that have to do with anything? And I was like, well, I mean, just what are your days? Like, what do your weeks look like? And he was like, just like normal stuff. And so he starts rolling through like an average week. He starts on a Monday and he's like, so this is the day we got to get up early, and then I got to take them to school, and then she's got to go over here, and then that's the early appointment day, and then I try and get in at the gym, and then I go over here, and then we got to do this, and then this meeting, and then we do this Zoom thing over, and then I go over here, and then at whatever, and then that's the day that we pick up, and then I got to go to a practice, whatever. He got done with Monday, and I was like, that's too much stuff, okay? I'm sweaty and confused and tired listening to you talk about Monday. And he's like, Tuesday. I was like, I don't have the energy for Tuesday. I can't go to Tuesday with you in this conversation. It's too much. And I asked him the question. I'm like, when do you two spend time together? And he's like, that's easy. Every night we have this routine where we tuck the kids in, we get in bed, and we lay next to each other, and we lovingly stare into our phones. And we just spend some quality time just scrolling through our favorite social media, texting people, finishing up some emails, looking up things that we thought are interesting and not really talking much. And I was like, I don't know if that counts, but I could tell that he really needed me to count it for him at that moment, and so I let it pass. But I got to tell you, like, when you think about this exchange and when you look at this picture, I wonder if there's something about it that feels familiar to you. If you could look at this and be like, wow, this could very well be my life. Like, this could be a shot that somebody snuck in and got in our bedroom, because this is sort of the life that we live. And I got to tell you, of all the research and everything that I've done for this series, that the conclusion that I've come to is that the biggest issue, the main issue for most modern couples is that they're doing too much. Now, that may come as a surprise to you, but this is what all of the research is pointing to, that we are doing too much. And I know that there's probably something in you that pushes back against that, of like, well, not us. You know, we're just doing the normal amount. You know what I mean? We're just doing what you have to do, right? We like to be busy. Okay, we like to have things going on. We like to, we have goals and dreams and things we're trying to do, and we want to support each other and be there for each other. And there's just a lot of our kids, and they each have like 5 or 6 things each, and you got to take them and go and support and pay for and cheer on and whatever. And then we got this thing with our family, and so that we got to do that. You got to go to the gym. You got to do that thing. And she's got a side business that she's trying to start, and so she's got to do that thing. And I got to golf. You know what I mean? I have golf that needs to happen. And so that's got to get it. And it's good. It's a lot of stuff, but it's all good stuff. And we want to live life to the full. And I think that's what we're doing. But I got to tell you, there is a difference between a full life and an overfilled life. And a lot of us have not figured out where those lines are. It is not sustainable to add and add and add to your life and never subtract. And yet we do this because we don't want to have to give anything up. We don't want to have to reduce or subtract or downsize or minimize. And most of the stuff that we have going on is really good. But I got to tell you, just because something is good doesn't mean it fits. A lot of times what our lives end up looking like is sort of a glass on a table that is completely full of water that represents sort of our schedule and everything that we have going on. And yet, instead of acknowledging that to fit more, we have to take some out, we just keep pouring more and more things into the cup. And it does what it does, right? It overflows and it makes a mess. And some of our lives are just as messy because we just keep filling and filling and filling and filling, but there's no more room for anything to fit. But we don't want to let go of anything in the process. And what's funny about this is that most of us, this is sort of what we do in our culture, when we start to feel overwhelmed and we feel the messiness of our life, we're like, you know what we need to do? Things feel just are stressful, and it's a lot, and it's so frustrating, and we are fighting all the time. We should add something else. We should do something new. We should do something different. We should have an adventure. We should pile on more things. We should do a class, right? And usually one of you is suggesting that, and the other one is like, oh, dear Jesus. And what is funny is we then get confused that we've made an even bigger mess and it's not working to calm things down or reconnect us to each other. And I think part of the reason why we do this is not because we are intentionally self-sabotaging, but because our culture is constantly trying to convince us that we can and should have, be, and do it all at once. In fact, anything else is unacceptable. You are wasting your life if it's not cram-packed to the max. And all you have to do to make your dreams come true is hustle continuously all the time. And so we do. In fact, our whole life is a hustle. We cram pack our schedules and we wear our busyness as this badge of honor while our relationships pay the price. And when we feel it catching up to us, we find ourselves saying like, you know what, I get it, but here's the thing, just a little bit more. Just a little bit longer. Right? I mean, I have plans to slow down and simplify my life and put more time and focus and energy into my relationship, but like when we are able to make this much first, when we reach this particular point, when we can get to live in this neighborhood, when our kids finally get out of this stage, when we have this level of freedom, then we're going to slow down, change things, focus on each other, and everything is going to be like it was at the beginning. But just because we tell ourselves that doesn't mean it's a truth that is to be believed, even though sometimes we latch onto it. In fact, very rarely can we sort of overpack our schedules and set aside our core relationships, walk away from them altogether, and then come back and pick them up years later and everything be the same. In fact, there's usually hurt, baggage, abandonment that's all rolling around in that person's heart when we've sort of been off just doing what we're doing. A few stories turn out this way, where we, overextend ourselves, and then one day just everything changes. We get what we want, and we go back to the beginning. And in fact, I think the story that we're looking at in this series in the book of Esther is the same sort of story that a lot of us are living. You have this king and this queen who fall in love, and they begin their lives together, and everything's great. But a short time later, the queen's cousin comes to her and is like, hey, you need to talk to your husband about this thing that's a really big deal. It's like this plot that was sort of under wraps that he found out about that's going to mean the destruction of a lot of different people. And this is what she says. We read this last week, but just to revisit it, Esther chapter 4, verse 11 says, all the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king without being invited is doomed to die. And the king has not called for me to come to him for 30 days. In other words, I can't talk to him. Like, we have not been getting along. I don't even know that you could say that we're fighting. We don't even have time to fight. Fighting might actually be an upgrade at this point. We just don't, we don't even bump into each other. Like, we have so much happening. He hasn't even called for me in 30 days. And I can't tell you how many times I sit down with couples who are at a difficult moment in their relationship, and I ask them what's going on, and they start by saying something like, I can't remember the last time we something. I can't remember the last time we went on a date that was just the two of us, where we were focused on each other, and it was just that, a date. Not a pretend business meeting where we were talking about how we were going to retool our budget. I can't remember the last time we just held hands and took a walk without an agenda, and we just breathed in the air and looked around our neighborhood and smiled at each other. I can't remember the last time, honestly, that we had sex. It's been way longer. I can't believe I can't do that math in my head. That's how long it's been. I can't remember the last time we had a conversation with each other about how we're doing and feeling that doesn't just immediately turn into us just talking about and obsessing over the kids. I can't remember the last time we just went away for the weekend and it was just the two of us and it was focused on each other and we didn't allow work or other family stuff or drama to trail us into that hotel. It was just us focused on us. I can't remember the last time we just spontaneously did something for each other, like bought each other something or surprised each other with something, because we don't even think like that anymore. I can't remember the last time it looked like that. Why is this so common? I think over time, other things creep in, and those things become the priority over and above the relationship, and it gets squeezed out. And I think that is what happens to the couple in this story in the book of Esther. You have the king who is dealing with all different sorts of stuff. He's so busy. He is dealing with his ex-wife and their very public breakup, which is not fun. His generals are losing battles, and his army is dwindling, and he's not very popular at this time. Like, his provinces and his control of them are sort of slipping out of the way. His advisors are giving him conflicting counsel about what to do. Because apparently back then, a lot of politicians didn't agree on the way to run a country, which is really different than now, where everyone just gets along and sees eye to eye. But back then, it was really different. and he was having a hard time trying to sort through what to do. And to deal with it, he drank a lot. If you read the book of Esther, he's drunk half the time. This guy has a severe drinking problem to sort of deal with his life. He just survives an assassination attempt before we get to this part of the story. I mean, there's so much going on in his life. And Esther has so much going on too. She's incredibly busy, right? She was plucked from obscurity and placed in the palace. And so she's trying to learn how to have everyone watching every detail of your life, because that has not been her experience up to this point. She has very little contact with her family. She's trying to learn a brand new culture because the way she grew up is not the way that life is in the palace. The traditions are different. She's trying to keep a part of her identity a complete secret from almost everyone around her. And she's required to keep up this beauty regimen and to make all these public appearances. And all the while, her cousin keeps coming around saying, like, hey, there's this plot to kill all of our people. You need to get involved and do something. That is a lot of stress. But it's not just that there are a lot of stressful things happening or that there's a handful of stressful things happening. It's that they're so busy with so many other things other than each other. And essentially, what they find is that they get into this cycle where they are overextended, and because they're overextended in their lives, they become stressed. And because they're so stressed, they're very reactionary, right? They're not addressing each other from like a calm, reasonable place. They're snapping. They're doing all of the like sort of automatic things that are like over the top with each other. And those reactions cause them to feel disconnected from one another, because they don't appreciate that. And that disconnection, as it floats into the future, turns into division. And this cycle that they keep repeating in their life due to their busy schedules is eating away at their relationship. Everything else besides the two of them becomes the priority, and they grow apart. And the reason that this may sound familiar to you is because this is not just about what happened then. It's about what continues to happen to so many of us right now. And the reason that people do grow apart, it's a real thing that happens when our priority is placed on things other than that person, is because we have this need for connection that is so great that if we can't get that connection from our spouse, we'll gravitate toward wherever else we can. And I know when you hear me say that, like some of you are just like, oh, he's talking about an affair. I just know it. And maybe, but like the second that your life is overstressed and things aren't going well, the first reaction is not to have an affair. That is down the road quite a bit. In fact, to actually know how a relationship begins to crumble, you've got to think a bit smaller and broader. In fact, I want you just to ask yourself this question. Like, is there anything that you do that is separating you from or becoming a substitute for your spouse? Is there anything that you do, probably on a regular basis, that is separating you from or becoming a substitute for your spouse? And I think for most of you, if you're honest, you're like, maybe, right? It could be fixating on a news cycle, just being caught up and obsessed with it, scrolling through social media, grabbing drinks with friends, just texting memes back and forth with people that you work with, achieving at work, trying to get a promotion or a raise, needing to feel needed by your own kids, obsessing over what they're doing and what's going on with them, being preoccupied with your own fitness. That's one we love in California. Binging shows, playing video games for hours on end. We could go on and on and on. One psychologist calls these things thirds. And essentially a third is anything other than the two people in the relationship, right? And everybody has them. And most of them are not bad, right? They're just things that we do or things that occupy our lives. But if you don't place limits on them, they will kill your connection. In fact, to have a strong relationship, you have to maintain what therapist Stan Tatikin calls your couple bubble, which is just fun to say. Couple bubble. And your couple bubble is the boundaries and agreements that hold a couple together and insulate their relationship from outside forces, right? It is sort of like the way your relationship works and everything that you've put in place to make sure that the other person stays your priority in your life. But this isn't something that this particular therapist came up with because it sounds really familiar to me. In fact, it sounds exactly like this Old Testament Jewish wedding ritual that dates back to the book of Exodus. It reminds me of something called the chuppah, which is like this canopy that covers a couple during an ancient Jewish wedding ceremony. Sometimes people still do this. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but it basically looks like there are different elaborate ones, but they're basically it's like 4 sticks that hold up like a white beach towel often, right? And some people go next level and they Pinterest it, and that's what you're looking at right here. But essentially, the reason why this is a core piece of a Jewish wedding ceremony is it is something that is symbolizing that God is above this couple and that he's overseeing the formation of this new thing that's being born between the two of them, that's being put into place between the two of them. In a ceremony, only the couple itself is allowed underneath the chuppah. The rabbi stays on the outside. The wedding party gathers on the outside of it. And it represents these boundaries and agreements that are being established between these two people that separate the two of them from the rest of the world. And part of the ceremony is instilling in the two of these people that they are responsible to limit what comes in and what stays out. It's this reminder that their priority now, from this day forward till death do them part, is to focus on and nurture and cultivate their relationship with each other under God. And in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, he insists that even if we don't, we don't place this thing inside of our wedding ceremony, that we at least fight for what it represents inside of our marriage. He says this in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21, to honor Christ and put each other first. A wife should put her husband first, as she does the Lord, and a husband should love his wife as much as Christ loved the church and gave his life up for it. Essentially, Paul is saying, here's the thing. The number one priority in your life ought to be your connection with God. And as you begin to experience the love of God and reflect that love back to him and other people, you're to understand that the number one priority in your life after your relationship with God is your relationship with your spouse. So put each other first before all of the thirds. And Paul is saying, and just so you know, there's going to be a lot of thirds, and they are going to be vying for your attention constantly. But laying down your life for someone, it means being willing to demote, sacrifice, or give up any of the thirds that interfere with your relationship with them. In other words, what Paul is trying to communicate to us is essentially reiterating this ancient Jewish idea of this is your new priority. In other words, your hobbies are not more important than them. Your job is not more important than them. Your kids or parents, or specifically your mother-in-law, is not more important than that other person. Your friends are not more important than them. Your dreams are not more important than them. Think about how anti-American this is. Nobody gets between me and my dreams. I was like, what? We're so quick to bring everything else underneath the chuppah and deprioritize the person that we've agreed to partner our life with. And all of these things that we're talking about, most of them are not bad. It's just that they're not first. And here's the thing I want you to realize. If you reflect on your own life, if you're really being honest, some of your bubbles are so crowded, there's barely room for the two of you in it anymore. It's just a bunch of other stuff. You exist in this tiny little bubble that's just supposed to be the two of you, but you've pulled this in and this in and that in, and now you can barely see each other. you can barely connect with each other. When was the last time you sat down and you took inventory of everything outside your relationship that takes time, energy, money, and priority away from your relationship? When was the last time you had that conversation with each other? Because no matter who you are or where you live, whether it's ancient Babylon like Esther or modern day America, there are basically 5 things that you were going to have to make decisions about as a couple of how you're going to manage. And the 5 of them are your home, your work, your kids, surprises, and magic. Some of you are like, you lost me towards the end. But let me just break down really quickly like what these things are, right? Home, it's like who's going to do all the stuff that manages our house, like the laundry, the dishes, the grocery shopping, mowing the lawn. Who's going to do all this stuff? Then there's work, which starts with like how much do we need to make? And do we actually need to make that, or do we just feel like we should make that? Or do you just want to make that? And when are we going to work? And who's going to work? And whose career takes priority if we both get opportunities? Ooh. Then there's your kids, like who's going to help them with homework? And who is going to tuck them in at night? And who's going to take them to practice and make the orthodontist appointments? And, who is going to talk them through all of their friend drama that seems constant? Then there's surprises, right? Like, what are we going to do if the air conditioning unit breaks again in the middle of summer? What if dad has a stroke? What if someone hits our car? What if the someone that hits our car is one of our kids? What if grandma visits unannounced without telling either one of us? What if the dog gets pregnant for like the 5th time? I can't do this again. And then there's magic. And this is usually the one that people are like, okay, what is this? Like, these are like the dates that you go on. Who's going to plan that? When is it going to happen? How are you going to make your anniversary special? What are your holiday traditions going to be? What are the things that like are just the special little things between you? When are you going to surprise each other just to let the other one know that you're thinking about them and that you love them still? Like, that's the magic. And each of these has to be thought through and organized and planned in order for your relationship to function on a practical level. But here's the reality. Oftentimes, the first 4 choke out the 5th. And maybe that is what has happened in the relationship that you're currently sitting inside of. When there's no magic, relationships feel dry and they eventually die. Life feels monotonous. Couples start to feel like roommates. Home life starts to feel like boot camp. And we start to say things like, we're just going through the motions. We're just trying to make it through. We're just in survival mode. This is not how I thought it was going to be. This is not what I thought I was signing up for. Why are you so different than I remember? You know what we're saying? Where's the magic? Because what happens naturally at the start of a relationship requires a whole lot of intentionality for the rest of a relationship. In fact, any romance that works long term is because both people are putting in work. And eventually, over time, the work that we put into each other ends up being work that we put into everything else in every other category. I would say that a lot of the work that has to be put in for a couple to go the distance and remain in love is work around priorities, because things sneak in and dilute the bubble. The truth is, you can't fix an overpacked schedule with optimistic thinking. You have to lean into love, and love sets limits. And this is what I mean by that. I think a lot of times we look at our life and we're like, oh, we're just so stressed. There's so many things going on. This is crazy. But you know what? It's going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We love each other, and we're going to make it, and it's going to be great. Those are just thoughts. There is no plan. And sometimes we try and overpower the fact that we do not have a plan to simplify our schedule, to prioritize what's actually important, and stick to it together. And so we just tell each other the lie that we can ignore it and just overpower it by just being smiley. And the longer you're together, the less this works. Love sets limits. It makes tough choices. It says no to things, even some good things. It's really selective about what to do and what not to do. One Old Testament writer said it this way. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23, he says, "You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. Not everything is beneficial." Beneficial to what? Not everything that you could do or put on your schedule is beneficial to your relationship with God and your relationship to your partner. Like, those things may be taking away from the relationship that you're trying to have. And this means actually deciding, listen, if doing this thing this much or in this way, in this season, is hindering our relationship, even if it's a good thing, it's no longer a good thing. Not for us. Not right now. It's in the way. In fact, this is the filter that I would suggest that you leverage when you're trying to sort through your life and bring back the magic, is to ask this question about everything that you're looking at in your life. Is this the best thing for our relationship right now? Not is it fun, not do I like it, not is it going to make us lots of money, not will it benefit me, but does this benefit us? Is this bonding us? Is this making us stronger? Is this going to increase or decrease the magic between us? And facing the answer to these questions are going to be difficult. In fact, you know what often happens? Your spouse will figure out something that you're doing that's killing the magic in your relationship before you do, and then they tell you, and then you hate them for it because they're right. And you don't want to stop. You don't want to let go. You don't want to make a change. And the excuse that we use is it's not a bad thing, but it's a good thing that's doing a bad thing to the best thing. You see, just because a change is good doesn't mean it's going to feel good. In fact, I've discovered that most sacrifices feel way worse before they make anything better. This is why, like, when you are like, you know what, I'm going to get it in shape this January, and you go to the gym, and your trainer who's got, like, abs on top of his abs is like, let's do this thing. And you're like, okay. And then you come back, like, 2 days later, and you're like, this is horrible. I feel horrible. I think I might be dying. And he's like, no, you're out of shape. You just got to commit. You just got to push through. And you're like, I want to push through you. I want to push you away from me and live differently because I want to go back to all-you-can-eat sushi buffets. I don't want to be doing it. It doesn't feel good. I don't feel good. And he's like, it's going to feel uncomfortable for a while until you establish a new rhythm. But this is in line with who you want to be, even though it doesn't feel good at the moment. And I got to tell you, you definitely need to set a boundary with something in your life if you have reached a place in your marriage where you are more willing to disappoint anyone else in your life than your partner. And some of us have found ourselves in this place. It's a clear sign that there is a lot that has cluttered the hopa of your marriage, and that you need to do some house cleaning in your couple bubble. So here's your homework. I want to encourage you this week to list your thirds, to rate the impact they're having on your relationship, and to brainstorm some new boundaries. And this is something that you're going to have to do together and be in agreement on, and it may be tense, so do it in a public place. Where they don't allow firearms. I'm saying there's boundaries for the moment where you're setting up the boundaries, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I got to tell you, this is something that you're going to have to do more than once. You're going to need a rhythm of this. Some of you just need to break the ice and do it. But then there's going to have to be a rhythm of doing this on an ongoing basis, of rating the thirds in your life and how much like a space they're taking up and what it's doing to your relationship. It took my wife and I an embarrassingly large amount of time to realize that to keep our relationship healthy, that we have to do a few different things. We have to plan, like sit down and plan our goals and dreams together at least once a year. And yet that's only the first step, right? Sometimes we would get into feuds because I would be like going after something and I'm like, why aren't you supporting my dreams? And she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Because you're trying to pursue something that you really haven't fully discussed or analyzed. We realized that not only do we have to plan our goals and dreams once a year, but we had to reassess that plan and our progress towards it once a month. And essentially just sitting down and saying, like, are we actually doing the thing that we set out to do? Is it working? We had a hypothesis that if we organized our schedule this way, it was going to feel like this. It was going to work like this. It was going to move us in this direction. Were we right or wrong? Does anything need to be adjusted or tweaked? We realized that, like, we're going to have to discuss things once a week, meaning our schedules and our budget. Like, what's going on? Who's taking them there this day? What's happening with that? Who spent this much money on a sandwich? Can we afford that? What is going on right now? How are we going to make room for this surprise thing that our kid just told us about? Oh, I just forgot. I need $100 for the soccer thing. And it's like, you couldn't have told us earlier? And then even beyond that, we have to debrief our highs, lows, and reminders every single day. And the highs, lows are essentially just us digging into each other's life. A lot of us, I think, we skip this because we get to the end of our day and we are so exhausted and we're so tired and our schedule is so cram-packed and we have so many things going on and we're being pulled in so many different directions and there's so much clutter in the bubble that we get to the end of the day and it's like, I don't even want to talk to you. I don't want to hear about your day. I don't want to share in your stress. It's too much. But the reason we partner with somebody is so we can celebrate the highs and we can mourn the lows with one another. And the reminder part is just practical, and they're mostly for me. Where my wife is like, remember, you got to do this tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm going to set a triple alarm because I will forget. And this is what enables us to stay on top of the 5 things so that the first 4 don't choke out the magic. And here's the thing. If you just plan to have all magic, there's at least one partner who are like, this doesn't feel magical because the first 4 things are not being taken care of. And that's why you got to make space for all of them. This is how real life is done, and it's a discipline, and it's not always fun to do, but the outcome of it is what you want. And I got to tell you, we've learned that if we don't do this, our relationship drifts, our priorities shift, our bubble gets crowded. That's not what we want or who we want to be. We flash back to the Esther story. She's at this moment where she needs to go in and talk to her husband about something that makes her nervous because they're not close. They haven't been spending a lot of time together. They feel like there is a disconnection between the two of them. There's busyness that has crowded out their connection. She's feeling disconnected from him. She's nervous how he's going to react. She's suspicious that everything else in his life is more important than her at this moment. But as soon as she walks into the room, he locks eyes with her and he says this to her. Esther chapter 5, verse 3. He says, what do you want, Queen Esther? What's your request? I'll give it to you, even if it's half the kingdom. Now, this is a huge thing to say. He is lording over the largest kingdom in the world at this time in history, and he takes the job seriously, but this is his way of making it clear to her in this moment, as important as my kingdom is, compared to you, it's a third. It barely comes in third place. Whatever you need from me, whatever you want from me, you let me know. And I'll move heaven and earth to make it happen for you if I'm able. If you sense that anything is crowding out or cluttering up the hopa under which we've committed our lives to each other, if anything is pulling us apart, you say the word and it's gone. Because it's not worth achieving and experiencing all of this other stuff if I lose you in the process? You're first. This is how you lay down your life for the other person. This is how you love your wife like Christ loved the church. If you want to renew your relationship, if you want to rekindle the romance, if you want to restore the magic, you've got to be brave enough to ask your bride, guys, what's your request? It's yours. You're first. Imagine a marriage in which this was your posture. No matter how much I'm into it, no matter how much I've elevated it, no matter how obsessed I am with it, you come first. If I have to demote it, if I have to rearrange it, if I have to push it aside, if I have to let go of it altogether, you're worth it. What I want to pray into your life today is that as you go home and you begin to reflect on these questions, you begin to rate your thirds, you begin to see the things that have cluttered your couple bubble, and you begin to make difficult decisions together that are not going to feel good at first, that you would have the courage to put everything second. And that they would be very clear on that intention. And you're going to need God's help to do that, which is why I want to pray that into your life today. Would you bow your heads across this room? God, we are so incredibly grateful for your love, grace, and mercy in our lives. We're grateful for the fact that you love us and you make us capable of love, and then you put people in our lives to love and be loved by. God, help us to protect these relationships. Help us to elevate the person that we have connected our life to the top position of our earthly responsibilities. God, may we pursue our relationship with you, and right after our relationship with them, may we be willing to let go of anything that's diminishing us. Empower us to have the courage to follow through. In Jesus' name we pray. Everybody said, amen. Amen. Before we dismiss today and send you out to eat way too many nachos, and I want to just sort of have a family moment with you. And so if you're new with us, if you're just checking things out, you can kind of tune out for a second. But I want to just sort of have a family moment with those who call South Hills their church home. And I want to invite my wife to come up, and also our worship pastor, Pastor JR, and his wife, Cassie, and their adorable baby will come out. So much cuteness. It's not even fair. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Some of you are not going to listen to anything any of us say because this child is too cute, and that is fine. But JR and I have been talking for a while just about some things that God has been doing in his life and his family, and I wanted him to get a chance to share some of that with you and bring you in on what God is doing in him and what that means for us.
What's up, guys? It's good to see you guys. Well, just to give you guys a little update, when you pray for a miracle and God gives you your miracle, she's literally, man, I could do anything for that girl. Yes, your first round of applause, Debbie. There's always an act of obedience. There's always a responsibility when God blesses you. Part of that is that I will be transitioning out of South Hills as the worship pastor here. I've been given an opportunity to take care of my family in ways where, I want more babies, and you know how hard it is to live in Southern California. So, recognizing what the Lord was doing, it's been a long conversation with me and Adam. It's nothing new to us. But the Lord has given, again, I'll say, the Lord has given me an opportunity to one day soon have my wife, raise our kids. And not everyone gets that opportunity. So, I'm turning 40 this year. Oh, Lord. 1985, who's in the house? 1985? December, come on. And even at this age, I'm recognizing, I feel like there's always turning points in your life with faith. And it's, you're either going to let, something pass you by, or you're going to recognize it, hopefully with God eyes, and see the moment where the Lord is going to call you into something new. And it's never letting go. It's never like truly dismissing or like this is the end of a chapter. I just feel like the Lord is giving me an opportunity to do what is best for my family. And not only that, I just want to give it up to the worship team this morning. Our team has grown phenomenally, not only in the amount of people who have joined, but like this is just another indication. It's indicative of what the Lord is doing here. So as we got at the end of this month will be the transition. February 23rd will be the last Sunday I'm here, and you'll have us for another 2 weeks. But we love you guys. South Hills met us in a moment where I was in deep hurt. And even in transitioning in 2020 to this church, it was healing for me and my wife. So I hope that this continues to be the story here at South Hills, that it's healing for you, that God calls you to greater things. So thank you guys. We love you, and I'm going to give it back to our pastor.
Thanks, buddy. I know like moments like this are difficult because when you really love someone and they become a part of your life, you're like, I just want you to stay and do the thing that I'm used to you doing forever. And yet at a church now that has been around for coming up on 3 decades, that means that there are going to be a lot of people that God brings in, and also that God moves on into other things. And we want to be a place that is always honoring of that. And I tell all of our staff this at all times, like my goal when you come onto our team is to be able to empower you to do what God is calling you to do, no matter what the season looks like for you. And I selfishly want you here, but if God ever calls you away from here, I want to do everything I can to support you and empower you to do that in the right way. And it was tough because selfishly, I just kind of want JR to just be doing what he's doing because I love him and we've got a history together. Some of you may not know this or remember this, but he came on staff in 2020. Bless you. Yeah. But he came on staff at 2020. We were still on the lawn, and we didn't really even have a worship team. And I was like, is your wife willing to sing too? Because we got nobody to give you. It's been a weird season and has been with us since we were a couple people on the lawn to, close to 1,000 people every Sunday right now, and a couple different services with just an incredible worship team that he has built from scratch over the last few years. And I think even today's worship experience is evidence of his faithfulness and everything he's invested into what we're doing. And those are the people that are going to take us into the future. And there's no bigger gift than when you invest in a ministry to know that it is going to thrive when you step aside or step away. And I'm excited to see that happen. But I do want to encourage you with the fact that while JR is stepping back from his official position at our church, that they're still a part of our church. They live really close. They've got family and so many friends that go here. This is still their church. You'll see them around, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to talk him in occasionally to coming back and guest leading for us. But he's got an incredible opportunity to step away from church work and pursue something that will help them reach their family's goals. And again, I planned this message series way back last November. And today, and what I'm talking about, couldn't have synced up more with what you watch him doing, of saying like, this is my priority, this is my bubble. Even good things like ministry got to come second. And this is somebody who's walking out their faith in a bold and a brave way that I'm proud of. And so I just want you to know that I love you. There's so much love in here for you. And we're excited that you're going to continue to be a part of our family, even as you step away and continue to grow yours. And thank you for everything that you have done here. We're eternally grateful. So... Like JR said, we've got 2 weeks with him leading worship, and so come bring friends with you, lean in, sing extra loud for him on his last couple official weeks. And then on the 23rd will be his last official Sunday, and we will transition into what is next for our worship experience. But before we go today, even though this isn't his last day, I just want to pray over him. And I'm going to invite my wife actually to give voice to our prayer. And would you just stretch a hand towards them if you feel comfortable, and as we pray over them together.
Let's pray. God, we are so grateful for JR and Cassie. So grateful for all that they have brought to our church, to our lives, from leadership to worship to their hearts and passion to serve you and bring others along. God, I pray that as they are stepping out in a new thing in their life right now, that you would bless them, that you would provide for them, God, that you would protect their family, that you would grow their family, Lord Jesus. God, we are so thankful for everything that you've given and entrusted them with. And I ask, God, that as they go forth from doing ministry full-time here to doing work elsewhere, God, that you still have so much ministry in store for them. You have so many lives for them to touch and impact and make a difference in, and integrity to bring to an industry, and so many things, God. We are grateful for the way that you lead, that you guide, and that you provide. Lord, we pray blessings over them and their family in Jesus' name. Amen.
Maybe you're like me and you're like, I need a lot of time to process this information. It's so hard when people that you love, I'm not crying, I'm sick. But if you're crying, it's okay. JR and Cassie and their whole family, they're going to be out on the plaza for the next couple weeks, but also like right after this service. So I encourage you, go talk to them, encourage them, tell them how they have meant a lot to you, how they've impacted your life. I know that my life has been impacted by both of them, and sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And so I doubt that they would be annoyed to hear good things about how they've impacted them. So can we just like give another round of applause for JR and Cassie? Before you guys leave today, I just wanted to invite you over to our prayer corner. It's over to my right, your left, where we have a group of incredible volunteers who would love to just pray with you, connect you with any resources that we can, and help walk you through any next steps. And as before, I mentioned that you have a little groups pamphlet, and I didn't tell you a top secret piece of information. We have some secret menu items on this pamphlet that aren't even in the pamphlet. We actually are starting up a little young adults kind of hangout thing. So I encourage you, keep up with our Instagram and our Church Center app so that you can get involved and see what we're going to be doing. No matter what group you join, I hope that you get into one. We hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.